Where does it talk about temptation in the Bible?
Man, it talks about it a lot, and you're going to kill me for this, but in Genesis 3, yeah, you knew we were going to go over there.
Yeah.
And I mean, so we have temptation from point 1.
Genesis 3 and the Jesus part.
Oh, where Jesus is tempted in Matthew 4,
In the desert.
In the desert, yeah. And so, Genesis 3, obviously you've got Eve being tempted, okay? Actually, but I'm going to move ahead to one more chapter, to Genesis 4.
Okay.
And where we actually see Cain being tempted. And this is interesting, the way the Lord is taught, because Lord is actually like in conversation with Cain. All right.
Okay.
And so, so for those that don't know, so Adam and Eve have 2 children at this point in time, Cain and Abel. All right. So 2 brothers, and they both made offerings to the Lord. One of them was, Cain's was not acceptable to the Lord. And so in verse 6 of chapter 4 in Genesis, the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted?" In other words, if you do the right things in regards to offerings, won't it be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. And so right there, it's the idea of, again, enticement to sin. And it's like, hey, sin is right here at your door.
So is that God tempting Cain?
No, it's not God tempting Cain.
Okay.
And so it talks about, it desires to have you, but you must rule over it.
But he's kind of like, hey, you want to do sins, don't you?
No, he's not saying that.
Yeah.
He's telling.
Look at all these shiny sins you could get up to right now.
Right. And so obviously when the story goes, Cain doesn't rule over that desire that's, for him or that's within him towards sin, and he ends up killing his own brother. And so he goes from temptation to sin.
To murder real quick.
Real quick. And so, but in regards to your question, is it from God or not? So verse 13 of James chapter 1, okay, says, "No one undergoing a trial should say, 'I am being tempted by God,' since God is not tempted by evil, and he himself doesn't tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when he is drawn away and enticed by his own evil desire. Then after his desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And when sin is fully grown, it gives birth to death." And so God doesn't ever tempt. He has never, in other words, he has never tempted us to step into sin. Like, God doesn't do that. Does God put us to test our character, those kind of things? Yes.
Isn't that tempting?
Well,
isn't that general tempting?
Yeah, I think
like whichever sin I want to do most, if I fail this test, I'm just going to do that.
Well, it's not but God's not tempting us to do evil. Okay? There are times God will test to say, will we obey or not? Right? Like because it does say, for example, that like it talks about in the New Testament, like Christ actually testing or putting to so in John chapter 6 verse 6, it says this in regards to Philip, that Jesus asked this to test Philip, for he himself knew what he was going to do. And so, in other words, there is a testing that God does, but it's not a tempting to do evil. Does that make if I make a distinction between the two?
I guess.
So he will test our character. He will, in other words, will you obey or not obey? This, to go do this, to go do that.
But if he knows I'm going to do bad on the test and then go, if I was in school and I did bad on a test, I'd want to go do sins afterwards because I was mad. Cheat on the next test.
Oh. Okay. Well, that would probably say a lot more about you than the Lord, right?
Okay.
I mean, because all right, so let's just.
All I'm saying is we should get rid of testing.
Yeah, but testing.
JKLOL.
But testing is actually what leads to a refining of our own character. I mean that,
okay.
And we find that throughout Scripture.
So testing can refine you towards being a very sinful person.
Refine you toward being a very sinful person. Yeah. Okay,
who've been refined down to sin,
right? Because
all the time,
you've just
or refined good.
So, like you're saying, if you just constantly fail the test,
yeah,
you're going to just do sin.
Yes.
Right. Oh Lord!
Oh, what planet have you been on?
Are you saying that's Are you saying that's the response to failing the test?
Yeah,
is sin,
which God would know about.
Right, He would know about.
So isn't that tempting to sin by testing? I don't get it. That's my point.
Okay. Let me make a couple of different distinctions then. Okay. So kind of going back to our first definition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the enticement to sin.
Okay.
There's that kind of temptation. And that's the type of temptation that James is saying God doesn't do.
Okay.
God's not enticing us to sin, right? You know, in James, it says that the desire that's there in us is what draws us away into temptation, right? Each person is tempted when he is drawn away and enticed by his own evil desire. Okay. So there's that aspect of temptation, which is, I guess, and I tend to think of it more often that way too. Like, so that's why God is not tempting us to do evil. Okay. Because he would not set us up to try to test us and tempt us to do evil. But do we go through trials? Okay. That
where all we want to do at the end is do evil. Yes.
Well, and I think that's part of the testing of the character or the worth, right?
Okay.
And that's the other part of temptation, like, or that we translate temptation. It often means testing, right? So, like, have we gone through a testing? And so, in regards to our own character, our own worth. I mean, for example, in Romans chapter 5, it says, verse 3. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope. And so my point just being is, often we find ourselves going through trials, okay? Going through difficulties, going through hardships even, and those things are testing our character, right? Like, but they're not. They're not actually
trying to get me to sin.
But not trying, yes, it's not trying to allure me into sin.
Okay.
And so I think there's probably a distinction that needs to be made about two different kinds. So the devil
tempts me during a test from God to get me to sin?
Yes, the devil is the one tempting us to, step into sin.
Okay.
Or our own evil desires in this. Like, so for example,
during the test.
Right, the example you made, right? Like, you're literally taking a test. You're like, man, I failed that test. And then you're like, forget that. I'm going to go sin.
So the test wasn't what tempted me. It was the devil after I failed the test.
Or your devil or
during failing the test.
Yeah, or your own evil desire within you. In other words, your own depravity within you.
Oh, right, because I can do bad all by myself.
Right.
I don't need any help. I'm a strong,
independent sinner.
Independent sinner.
That's terrible. But yeah, often we are, you know. And I think that's what happened with Cain too, right? Like Cain, was like, the Lord was like, hey, all you got to do is do right.
So the devil didn't tempt Cain? He did bad all by himself?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. In Genesis chapter 4, verse 7 is what I read from earlier. It says, if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you.
Okay.
But you must rule over it. And so it's referring to like this evil desire that is present, that is there. And that is what leads us into the sin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was like, nah, I'm going to kill 1/3 of the men on this planet.
Right. That's pretty much what happened.
Okay.
Or not even pretty much. That's exactly what happened.
Okay.
So, so does that help, like, understanding two different kinds of temptation?
I guess.
Okay.